Have you ever had the unsettling feeling that you are living in a dream, not a pleasant, whimsical dream, but a vast, intricate, and deeply convincing illusion, a collective hallucination from which you are just beginning to awaken? You look at the world, at the confident pronouncements of its leaders, at the passionate certainties of its tribes, at the very fabric of what is considered normal and true, and you feel a profound and terrifying sense of unreality. You see the contradictions that everyone else ignores. You hear the dissonant notes in the harmonious chorus of the consensus. You feel the cold, hard edges of a reality that the collective dream is desperately trying to smooth away. In those moments of terrible, luminous clarity, you are seized by a question. It is not a polite, academic question. It is a primal, existential, and deeply dangerous one. It is the question that has, throughout history, been the engine of all progress and the terror of all established orders. It is the simple, devastating question, why? Why is the world this way? Why do we believe what we believe? Why do we do what we do? But as this question rises in your throat, you feel another, more powerful force rising to meet it, a cold, preemptive wave of social anxiety, a primal, instinctual fear that tells you to be silent, to swallow the question, to go back to sleep. This is the great and tragic drama of our time. We are not just living in an age of misinformation. We are living in an age where the very faculty of questioning, the sacred and uniquely human capacity for skeptical inquiry, is in a state of catastrophic decline. We are not just losing the ability to find the right answers, we are losing the desire to ask the right questions. We have become a civilization of sleepwalkers, of contented prisoners in a cave of our own making, who have not just forgotten the existence of the sun, but have become terrified of the very idea of it. We are witnessing the rise of a new and terrifying form of consciousness, a state of collective blindness, a shared, networked and technologically supercharged flight from reality that is not just a threat to our intelligence, but to the very essence of our humanity. And the most dangerous part of this blindness is that it feels from the inside like perfect sight, the primal contract, the ancient and unchanging war between the questioner and the tribe. To understand how humanity forgot how to question, we must first accept a truth that our modern, enlightened egos find almost impossible to swallow. Questioning is not our natural state. Believing is. The human mind did not evolve to be a detached, truth-seeking instrument. It evolved to be a belonging-seeking instrument. For the vast, overwhelming majority of our species' history, our survival depended not on our ability to critically analyze the tribe's foundational myths, but on our ability to believe in them with a passionate and unquestioning faith. The tribe is held together by a sacred and inviolable story. This story provides meaning, it provides order, and most importantly, it provides a profound and neurologically rewarding sense of cohesion. The skeptic, the questioner, the person who dares to ask, "But is it really true?" is the most dangerous and terrifying figure in this world. They are not just an intellectual challenger, they are a threat to the very fabric of reality, a tier in the sacred canopy that protects the tribe from the terrifying chaos of the unknown. They are the heretic, the apostate, the traitor, and the history of humanity is, in large part, the history of the tribe, finding ever more efficient ways to silence, to shame, and to eliminate this threat. To question is, at its very core, an act of rebellion against this deep, primal, and cellular programming. It is the declaration of independence of the individual mind from the collective. It is a lonely, arduous, and fundamentally antisocial act. It requires you to stand apart from the warm, comforting fire of the group consensus and to venture out into the cold, dark, and uncertain wilderness of your own perception. It requires you to accept the terrifying burden of being the sole authority in your own life. This is a burden that most human beings throughout history have been unwilling to bear. It is far easier and feels far safer to outsource your thinking to the priest, to the king, to the party, to the collective. We have been living in a brief, anomalous, and historically unprecedented bubble, the bubble of the Enlightenment. A period in which the ideal of the sovereign, questioning individual was placed at the center of our civilization. That bubble is now bursting. We are not progressing into a new age of reason. We are regressing to our mean, to our ancient, tribal past. And our new technologies have created a perfect and ruthlessly efficient machine for facilitating this great surrender, for making the path of non-questioning not just the easiest path, but the most pleasurable and morally righteous one. The new church of the digital age, the rise of the ideological purity test. The new engine of this collective blindness is the rise of the ideological tribe. In a world where the old sources of meaning and belonging, religion, nation, community, have crumbled, we have poured all of our frustrated religious instinct into our secular and almost always political ideologies. These tribes are our new churches, and like the churches of old, they are built on a foundation of unquestionable dogma. The primary function of these new churches is not to seek the truth, but to provide their members with a powerful and intoxicating sense of moral certainty and social belonging. They offer a simple, binary map of reality, a clear distinction between the good guys and the bad guys, the heroes and the villains, the enlightened and the ignorant. They offer a sacred narrative that explains all the complexities and anxieties of the world in a single, elegant, and emotionally satisfying story. To join one of these tribes is to be offered the ultimate psychological comfort package, but the price of admission is your mind. To remain a member in good standing, you must agree to accept the group's dogma in its entirety. You are not allowed to pick and choose. You are not allowed to agree with 80% of the platform and to question the other 20%. To do so would be to reveal a lack of faith, a spiritual impurity. This is the death of the question. The questioning mind is, by its very nature, a mind that resists dogma. It is a mind that is comfortable with uncertainty, with nuance, with the idea that no single person or group has a monopoly on the truth. The ideological tribe cannot tolerate this. Uncertainty is a threat to its emotional coherence. Nuance is a threat to its moral clarity. The skeptic is not seen as a thoughtful individual. They are seen as a lukewarm, untrustworthy, and dangerous heretic. In this environment, conversation is no longer a collaborative process of discovery. It is a purity test. Every interaction is a potential minefield, an opportunity to say the wrong thing, to ask the wrong question, to reveal your moral impurity. The goal is not to understand, but to signal your unwavering virtue and your absolute allegiance. We have moved from a culture of debate to a culture of denunciation. And in a culture of denunciation, the questioner is always the first to be condemned. We have created a world where the most intelligent survival strategy is to stop thinking, to stop questioning, and to simply and silently obey. The architecture of the modern cave, the three great anesthetics of the mind. This ancient primal pull of the tribe is now being amplified and weaponized by the very architecture of our modern lives. We have created a world that is a perfect, frictionless machine for the production of mindless conformity. A world that is systematically anesthetizing the very faculties that make questioning possible. We are living in a new version of Plato's cave, but this one is far more sophisticated, far more comfortable, and far more difficult to escape. The first great anesthetic is the sedation of convenience. The human brain is, by its very nature, a cognitive miser. It is wired to conserve energy, to follow the path of least resistance. The act of questioning is the most energetically expensive activity a human being can engage in. It is slow, it is difficult, and it is metabolically costly. It requires the effort of deep reading, of sustained focus, of holding multiple competing ideas in the mind at the same time. The digital age has systematically eliminated the need for this kind of effort. We now live in a world of near infinite, frictionless information. Every fact, every opinion, every answer is available in an instant. This appears to be a great liberation, but it has had a paradoxical and devastating effect on our minds. We have mistaken access for ability. We have confused the convenience of the search engine with the labor of understanding. The algorithm has become a universal cognitive prosthetic, and like any muscle that is no longer used, the muscle of our own curiosity, our own memory, and our own capacity for independent inquiry is beginning to atrophy. The uncomfortable and creatively fertile state of not knowing, the very state from which all questions are born, is now experienced as a momentary glitch in the system to be immediately remedied with a quick search. The second great anesthetic is the narcotic of noise. Questioning requires silence. It requires the stillness and the solitude in which the mind can turn inward, reflect, and hear the quiet, subtle voice of its own doubt. We have engineered this silence out of existence. Our lives are a constant, unrelenting sensory assault. We have become terrified of the void, terrified of the silence, terrified of the prospect of being left alone with our own thoughts. This constant state of overstimulation keeps our minds in a state of perpetual, shallow reactivity. We are not thinking, we are processing. We are not questioning, we are reacting. The noise is a tool to prevent the dangerous and revolutionary act of introspection, the act where the quiet, fragile seed of a critical question can finally begin to grow. The third great anesthetic is the illusion of knowledge. We have outsourced our minds to the cloud. We have become masters at repeating the talking points, at deploying the correct buzzwords, but we have no understanding of the first principles. We walk around with the confident and often aggressive certainty of an expert, but we are, in fact, utterly hollow. When our downloaded opinion is challenged, we cannot defend it with reason, because it was never arrived at through reason. It was adopted as an act of social affiliation, and so we can only defend it with tribal fury. This is the death of skepticism. For the true skeptic is the person who is most acutely aware of their own ignorance. The modern mind, in its hollow certainty, has lost this most precious and essential of all intellectual virtues. We have become so full of answers that we have forgotten how to ask the questions. The path of the inner heretic. How to survive in an age of unquestioning obedience. If this is the diagnosis, what is the cure? How does one preserve the sacred faculty of questioning in an age that has declared war on it? The answer is as simple as it is impossibly difficult. You must choose to become an individual. You must consciously and deliberately undertake the work of psychological differentiation, of extricating your own soul from the sticky, unconscious web of the collective. This is the path of the inner heretic. The first step on this path is a radical and unapologetic commitment to your own direct experience of reality. You must learn to trust the evidence of your own senses and the judgment of your own reason over the pronouncements of the tribe, no matter how loud, how certain, or how morally righteous they seem. You must be willing to be the one person in the room who says, "The emperor has no clothes." This requires immense courage, the courage to be wrong, the courage to be shamed, the courage to be alone. It requires you to value truth more than you value belonging. For most people, this is a price they are not willing to pay. The second step is the conscious cultivation of a rich and deep inner life. In a culture that is addicted to external stimulation and validation, You must become a warrior for your own solitude. You must carve out sacred time and space to be alone with your own thoughts, free from the endless polluting noise of the collective. It is only in this silence that the quiet, subtle voice of your own doubt can be heard. You must read books, not just headlines. You must engage with the great, timeless minds of history, not just the fleeting, hysterical opinions of the present moment. You must build an inner citadel of wisdom that is so strong and so well-stocked that the foolishness of the world can no longer breach its walls. Finally, and most crucially, you must undertake the difficult and essential work of shadow integration. You must turn your critical gaze inward. You must come to see that the irrationality, the prejudice, and the dogmatism that you so clearly see in the other side also exists within you. You must take responsibility for your own projections, your own biases, your own primal tribal instincts. A true skeptic is not the person who is a master at deconstructing the arguments of others. They are the person who is a master at deconstructing their own. They have the humility to know that they are just as susceptible to delusion as anyone else, and they therefore maintain a state of constant, vigilant self-examination. They are not fighting a war against the ignorance of the world. They are engaged in a lifelong, compassionate and ruthless war against the ignorance within themselves. This is the path. It is a lonely path. It is a path that will not win you friends or influence in the conventional sense. It will not make you popular. In fact, it will almost certainly make you a target for the righteous fury of the herd. But it is the only path that leads to a life of genuine integrity, of psychological sovereignty, and of true, unshakable sanity. The world, in its current trajectory, may be choosing the path of the herd, the path of the echo chamber, the path of silent obedience, and the death of the question. But you do not have to go with it. In any age, no matter how dark, the future of human consciousness is carried not by the masses, but by a small, dedicated, and often invisible minority of conscious individuals who have had the immense courage to ask the forbidden questions. The choice to be one of them is the most radical, the most revolutionary, and the most important act you can take in the world today. Your mind is the last and only true frontier. The question is whether you will be its colonist or its king.